Welcome to this eLearn security video training lesson on Privilege Escalation. In this video, we're going to see how to use Metasploit and custom local exploits in order to get higher privileges on different machines and operating systems. Since we're going to focus on privilege escalation techniques, we will not see how to exploit the machines. Instead, we've already installed a backdoor on them. In order to start with our privilege escalation techniques, let's establish a Metasploit session with our first victim. The handler module is already configured, so we'll just run it. Here we are. The backdoor is working and we should have a new interpreter session in a few seconds. Let's gather some information from the target machine in order to understand which OS we're dealing with. The first command we're going to run is sysinfo. From the output, we can see we're dealing with a Windows 10 machine. Thanks to Metasploit modules and exploits, running privilege escalation on Windows machine is very easy. In some cases, we just need to run the get system command and wait for Metasploit to get higher privileges. Let's try it here and see what happens. As we can see, it seems to not be working. This usually happens when we're not the administrator and also when the user account control feature is enabled on the remote system. So, let's check what privileges we do currently have. One of the commands we can run to obtain this information is getPrivs. This will list all the privileges on the current session. Although it returns some privileges, these are not enough to elevate our session. Moreover, to get a better view of the current session, let's also run the post-exploitation module called WinPrivs. The script not only lists all of the privileges on the machine, but it also gives us useful information about the UAC status. As we can see in the output, it seems that UAC is enabled. Moreover, we do not have administrative or system privileges on the machine. In order to get higher privileges, we will first have to bypass UAC. Luckily, Metasploit offers some modules to do this. Let us put the interpreter session in the background and search which module we can use. We will simply use the search command followed by the word UAC. As we can see, there are a few modules that can escalate the UAC protection. The one we're going to use is Bypass UAC Injection. Let's select the module and show its options. Parameter we have to set is the session on which the module will run. So let us set it with the set session command. Notice that if we don't set any payload, Metasploit will automatically select one for us. But as we will see in a few moments, this is not going to work. Let's try to run the module and see what happens. As we can see, the module output tells us that the machine may be vulnerable, but after the execution of the exploit, it fails. When we run the Bypass UAC exploit, we need to be sure to set everything according to the target machine. In our case, the Windows 10 box runs on 64-bit. Therefore, we will have to select the target parameter accordingly. Let us then run show targets to see the correct ID to set. As we can see, we have to set target to 1. So let's set it and show all the module options. As you can see, Metasploit automatically selected the following payload for us. Notice that if we leave this payload, the exploit will still fail. Once again, the machine runs on 64-bit. Therefore, we have to select the payload accordingly. Let us then set the payload to Windows x64. Now we're good to go. Let's run the module and see if it works. Great, it seems to be working. Indeed, a new interpreter session has been created. Notice that this session has more privileges than the previous one. Indeed, if we run the getPrivs, we can see now that we have many more privileges. Moreover, let us also run the WinPrivs script and see the differences with the previous output. Besides the privileges list, we can see that now the admin parameter is set to true. Last thing to do then is to try to get the system privileges by running getSystem. Great! As we can see, this time it worked. If we run getUID, we can see that now we are running with system privileges, which is the highest privilege we can get on Windows. As we've seen, escalating privileges on Windows machines is very easy thanks to Metasploit modules and scripts. Although the entire process is straightforward, if none of the Metasploit bypassing modules work, we can still rely on external tools to achieve our goal. What we're going to do now, indeed, is use the AUC-me tool that you can find on the following address. As we can read here, the main purpose of the tool is to bypass UAC. If we scroll down a bit, we can see that the tool implements different methods. We just need to run it on the target machine, select the method we want to use, and provide the path of a file to execute. If the tool works, the program provided in the command will execute elevated. So let's start to configure everything we need. The idea is to create and upload a Meterpreter payload. Once the payload is stored on the machine, we will also upload the tool and run the command. In our example, we will use MSF Venom to create the payload, but you can use other tools too, such as Veil Evasion, the Backdoor Factory, and so on. Let's open a new terminal and start writing the MSF Venom command. With the -P option, we can specify the payload to use. In our case, we want a Meterpreter reverse TCP. Now we have to set the localhost parameter and set it with our IP address, 192.168.231.134. Same for the local port. In this case, we will set it to 1234. We want a Windows executable file, so we will set the -F parameter to exe. The last thing to set now is the path where to store the backdoor. To do this, we can use the -O argument. The command is complete. Let's run it and wait until it ends. Great, the backdoor's been created. Now we have to upload both the backdoor and the bypass UAC tool onto the target machine. Notice that we've already cloned the repository on our machine. We can find the compiled files in the following folder. As we can see, we have two executable files, one for 32-bit systems and one for 64-bit systems. The one we're going to upload is, of course, the latter. So, let us switch back to Meterpreter and interact with the first session. Once here, we can upload the backdoor with the following command. Notice that with the dot at the end of the command, we're telling Metasploit to upload the file into the current folder. Let us also upload the bypass UAC exploit. Now that we have both files on the target machine, before actually running them, let us create the handler for our payload. Let us put the session in the background and select the handler module. As we can see, we have to set the payload accordingly to the one we've just created. So let's change the payload option with the Meterpreter reverse TCP. Now we have to set its parameters too. We will set the localhost to our IP address machine and then set the local port to 1234. These are the same parameters used before to create the payload. Now we're good to go. Let's run the module and add the -J option. This will execute the module in the background. Therefore, we will be able to keep using Metasploit. Here we go, the module is running. We can now go back into our first Meterpreter session and run the bypass UAC exploit. Of course, we will use the first section that doesn't have the system privileges on the machine. If we take a look at the tool website, we can see that the method under number 10 should work on Windows 10 machines. So let's try to use this and see if we're able to bypass UAC. In order to run the tool, we can use the execute command or simply open a shell on the target machine. As we can see, in the execute help output, we have to use the -F to specify the command to run, and then the -A to specify the arguments of the command. In our case, we'll simply open a new shell on the window and run the exploit from there. Before running the command, let us list the files on the machine and check that everything is there. Here we have our payload and the bypass UAC tool. Let's now write the command. We will use the bypass UAC tool with the parameter 10, followed by the path of the application that we want to execute. Let us run the command and see what happens. As we can see, a new Meterpreter session has been created. Let us exit from the command shell and put the current Meterpreter session in the background. If we list all the sessions available, we can see that we have the new session here. Let's interact with it and check the privileges with the getPrivs command. As we can see, we have a long list of privileges. So let's try to run getSystem and see if it works. Great, once again, we're able to bypass UAC and get system privileges on the machine. As we've seen, even if we don't use Metasploit built-in modules, we can still escalate privileges quite easily. Also, notice that all the methods that we've seen so far work with almost all Windows operating systems. Now we know how to escalate privileges on Windows machines. So, let us change our target. Let's clean up the entire environment by killing all the active sessions and running jobs with the following two commands. Now let us run Metasploit once again with the following script. This will automatically configure the handler module for our second target. Once again, we've already exploited the remote machine, and we already have a backdoor installed on it. We'll just need to run the module, and we should obtain a new Meterpreter session. Great, it works. Similar to what we did previously, let us get some information about the target system. Target operating system is Ubuntu 14 and runs on 32-bit. Moreover, if we check the current user, we can see that we are not root on the machine. Differently from Windows Privileges Escalation, Metasploit does not offer any command to automatically elevate privileges on the machine. Moreover, if we check the local exploit for Linux systems, we will see that there are just a few modules available. This means that we have to manually find a possible exploit that may work on the remote machine. The best way to do this is by searching the target operating system version on Google, followed by the words privilege escalation. So let us go back into our browser and search this. As we can see in the results, it seems that there are some local exploits available online. Let's open the first link and see if it might work on our target machine. As we can see at the very beginning of the exploit, it seems that the target operating system is on the list. So let us download the exploit and see how to run it. As we can see, it is a C source code, which means we will have to compile it before running it on the target. We have two options now. We check if the remote system has the compiler, and then upload and compile it directly on the target, or we can compile it locally and then upload the compiled version. If you choose to compile the exploit locally, be sure to compile it with the correct architecture of the victim machine. Otherwise, the exploit will fail. Now, let us check if the target machine has the compiler. There are different methods to do this. In this case, we'll simply open a shell from our Meterpreter session and verify if the compiler is installed. Okay, let's go back into our Meterpreter session and open a new shell. We can do this by running the shell command or with the execute -f/bin/sh. Notice that since we want to interact with the command, if we use the execute option, we will also have to set the parameters -i and -c. The first one tells Metasploit to interact with the process after creating it, while the second will channelize the inputs and the outputs. Now that we have the shell, let's run gcc ---- version and see if we get any results. As we can see, it seems the target machine has the compiler installed. Let's try to upload the exploit on the target machine and then compile it directly from there. In order to upload the file, we'll use the following command. Now, let us create a new shell and compile the exploit with the following command. The -o argument is used to set the output file name. It seems that everything worked. Let us list the files and see if the compiled version is there. Here it is. Before running it, let us check once again the current user. As we can see, we're currently running under ELS. Let us now run the compiled exploit and see what happens. It seems that everything went well, so let's check the current user once again. Great, we're now running as root. As said before, we can also compile the exploit locally. If we check the architecture of our machine, we can see that we're running on 64-bit. Since the target machine is 32-bit, we'll have to select the correct architecture when compiling. So, let us move in the download folder and run the following command to compile the exploit with the -m32 argument. We're telling the compiler to compile the exploit for 32-bit operating systems. Now we just have to upload the exploit, make it executable, and run it. As you can imagine, if you want a Meterpreter session with highest privileges, you can simply create and upload a payload, in the same way we did before on Windows. Once the payload is on the target machine, you just need to run it as root. This concludes the training video lesson on Privilege Escalation. Thanks for joining us.